Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mr de Roy. I was just asking you some questions prior to the break about scriptures. I just want to, like I say, explore or suggest to you that would you agree that in the absence of having some comprehensive expert input into what scriptures you might give a person after they had been the victim of abuse, that it could have a serious negative impact upon a victim?
Saying the wrong things,
yes,
could have an impact like that.
Yes, yes. So, would you agree then that it's really important for you as an elder to, if you are going to use the scriptures, that they be incorporated into some program that takes care of the person not only ecclesiastically but emotionally, physically, psychiatrically, in all ways? Do you agree with that?
I really don't know perhaps where you're coming from there. I look at the scriptures that we use for comforting ones when they go through tribulations and situations like this. The scriptures, Philippians talks about the comfort that we get from the scriptures. So then using the right scriptures after listening and how they're feeling, and perhaps trying to help them readjust to Jehovah's way of thinking from God's word, that they that know themselves, and just reinforcing what they already know can actually help them to heal.
Yes. Well, firstly, you would agree that they would have to be the right scriptures and the right response to a particular individual, wouldn't they?
You've got to keep the individual in mind. Yes.
Pardon?
Yes, we've got to keep the individual in mind and use the right scriptures.
But what I'm suggesting to you is that of itself, well, firstly, I'm suggesting two things. Firstly, that of itself, just the scriptures alone, would you agree, are just simply not enough to deal with how a victim may feel?
You could be very right there. I would agree. I'd agree with that.
So that it would be important to ensure that they were aware of the existence of counselling, aside from counselling and support from trained people.
It would be good for them to know that. Can I just say that would be then something that the individual would have to decide. As an elder, I'm trying to give comfort from the scriptures that will help them to be fortified in dealing with what they're going through, helping them recall things that they have learned in the past, or examples that will actually help them. So cope with the stressful situation and the feelings that they have.
But for example, with BCG, you didn't at any time encourage her, did you, to go to a counsellor or some outside assistance, did you?
No. That I can recall.
And I just want to point to two. Do you recall in the investigative committee meetings that BCG was in fact counselled against talking about her, the abuse upon her?
I don't recall that.
Perhaps if the witness could please be shown Exhibit 29.9, the investigative report notes. So I think it's exhibit, sorry, I'm going from the exhibit list. Yes, notes investigative committee. If you look, please, at page 11 of those notes. If you go down to the bottom of page 11, you see that on the 17th of June 89, there's a meeting with BCI and BCG, and BCI being BCG's mother. Do you accept that?
Right, yep. Yes, I can see that.
If you just go over to the next page, please. Do you agree that up the top there it says that counsel given on confiding matters of family to congregation members, and you used articles and scriptures were used within the meeting? And that counsel was also given to BCG also of the same matters using the above articles?
I think that's correct.
So do you agree that she was counselled about speaking about this issue?
On keeping it confidential, we would have encouraged them not to speak to others about that at that particular time.
And if you go, please, over to, perhaps it could be taken to do you also agree that she was told, in fact, through the course of that meeting, not to speak to her husband about it at the time as well?
I don't recall that at all.
Okay. Sorry, I'll just find that. Okay, perhaps if you could go, please, to page 16 of the notes. Page 16. Sorry, I'm trying to find a reference up the top here. It doesn't seem to have a page number.
The next page.
Oh, sorry, 17. It seems to be 17, or a note that's before page 17. So over to the next page, please. Oh, yes, sorry, here. So if you could have a look at those notes, do you agree that it says to counsel, and there was a capital M under BC, under where it's redacted, well, there was that is a reference to BCG.
Right, yes.
On talking too much to too many others, including writing letters to friends about situation. And then it goes down and it talks even to talking of family matters. And it says a name there, and I don't want you to say the name. And it refers to 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 13. And do you agree that that is in relation to gossiping and meddling? That chapter?
Yeah, I would like to look at the scripture, but yeah, I'd take that that's the case.
So do you agree that BCG was in fact effectively told not to discuss these matters, even to her future husband?
I cannot recall those things, so...
But you accept that those notes were taken at those meetings? Yes. And would you also accept that that is an example of the danger of a scripture being given in isolation to a person who has been abused? That telling them to be quiet about it may have a very negative impact upon them.
In the way I perceive it and understand is that confidentiality is so important for the person involved. That not everyone knows of what has happened in the congregation. As the elders, we know, and we can continue to give her the comfort. But as far as confidentiality for the person, I looked at that as always being very important for the person as well. So that if she wants to say, if the person involved wants to say things, well, they're going to do that.
But do you not agree then, I'll put it this way, that she might feel silenced by the reference to that scriptures?
She may have.
So that's what I'm saying to you. Do you not agree that that might be have a very detrimental impact upon someone if they felt that they could not speak or talk to others about the trauma that they were experiencing?
See, talking though to everyone is very different to talking to ones who are going to give a help to of what's going through. So not everyone then is going to be able to be encouraging and say the right thing. So I think it's just looking at it from saying, all right, who's going to actually be of help? Those in the best position to help are the ones that really know all the situation of what she's gone through, and perhaps she has a close friend. But as elders, we have that to shepherd the ones in that situation. So,
do you
yes.
Do you believe that you would benefit from specific training of how to apply your scriptures in dealing with these matters internally? And I'm not suggesting that be done in isolation from other counselling, but I'm just for you alone.
Look, I look back over the time, and I can see the training, like for me, that I have received through all the our schools, the updated information, that has most probably, if you're looking at hindsight, I have a lot more training now and more understanding now than 25 years ago. Back then, I had training, but of course not tertiary training, but training in using the scriptures at that particular time, which was good training at that time. But now I look back for my own self, I am now equipped with a lot more information, a lot more understanding, and a lot more direction that I can avail myself on, that most probably is a lot better than back then.
Just on another point, you, in your statement at 6.1, it's indicated that you couldn't make a conclusive finding about the allegation in your committee meetings because it was one person's word against another, and she was informed of that. In fact, you informed her of that, didn't you?
I'll just explain from my memory and my understanding. When our initial judicial meeting, when it wasn't conclusive, but we had evidence for disfellowshipping the father on the grounds there of loose conduct and lying, then there is a 7-day time for appealing that. We encourage ones not to. We keep confidentiality on that. No one knows the reason for him being disfellowshipped from the congregation. You are given 7 days. So as far as me saying anything to anyone, no. Confidentiality dictates that we don't. So
So just on this point, the point I'm making is that she was told, wasn't she, that the reason for disfellowship had nothing to do with her allegation because it was not established by you and the other elders.
It was not established at that first meeting, but I don't ever recall saying that.
Well, if you have a look at the investigative notes, it's referred to in the investigative notes. If you have a look at, at those the investigative notes, and it's at that's 29.9, and that is page 15, or the 15th page. I don't know whether it's numbered. Sorry, it's a page before. Oh, actually, it must be 14A, perhaps. If you could scroll down a little bit. It's got there, if you could see just down the bottom there, it says, tell BCG of decision to disfellowship on grounds of loose conduct and procedure to take for reinstatement. So she was told, wasn't she, that it was the grounds were other than the grounds that she had complained of. Do you accept that?
It's written there. I can see that it's written there.
So do you accept that? It's really a simple...
No, I'm trying to be very honest in what I'm saying. I'm looking at a page where it could have been at that time. I really can't, from that page, say that, or whether that is then part of the notes. I cannot answer that.
Well, BCG has also stated that she was told by you at page 52 of her statement, and you were taken to it before, so I don't want to keep going over covered ground. But she also stated that he was being disfellowshipped for loose conduct and not for what he did to her. So you would agree that would tend to support, those notes tend to support what BCG has said, don't they?
It tends to support that, if that's the case.
Yes. But do you agree that the impact upon a complainant of being told that their offence has not been established in accordance with Jehovah's Witness principles, would you accept that can have a very damning effect on a victim? If they're a devout, or a victim of Jehovah's Witness, a devout Jehovah's Witness, as BCG was?
I think under the circumstance, she would have been very upset that the father did not acknowledge what had been done.
That's not the question.
No, yeah.
That's not the question you were asked.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Better repeat for me.
Yeah, the question was that do you not think the impact upon a complainant, that the fact that a complainant has made a complaint of serious wrongdoing, and she's been told that hasn't been established in accordance with the Judicial Committee process, what I'm suggesting to you is, do you not agree that can have a very damning impact upon that victim? Because they've been told essentially that the processes set in place by Jehovah's Witness, the Jehovah's Witness process, do not accept her complaint. Do you accept that?
I can understand what you're saying.
Do you agree
yes.
with me?
Yes, I can understand that.
And do you agree that therefore would highlight some area that needs real change in your processes?
Look, I would welcome any direction that would make it better. I welcome that very much so.
Because I just want to ask you on that point, how do you reconcile a situation, for example, where you might believe a complainant such as BCG, but yet it's not established. How can you really act to support BCG in those circumstances if it's not really established according to the processes and policies set in place or set down through the scriptures and coming out as processes for Jehovah's Witness elders to follow? How can you reconcile that? Do you know what? Sorry, I'm not making it particularly clear. I'll try again.
No, that's right.
How can you reconcile the fact that on the one hand you have a complainant who is believed, for example, such as BCG, but on the other you have, because the wrongdoing is not established in accordance with the Jehovah's Witnesses scriptures, how can you then turn around and support the complainant? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't understand how saying that we're supporting the complainant.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you don't accept that a wrongdoing is established, where is your authority or right to then turn around and support a victim or a complainant? How do you reconcile those
How do I reconcile?
factors? You've got an unproved complaint with a complainant who you might feel is credible.
The first thing that we were doing with someone like that is actually to make sure we do comfort the person that's happened to. That's certainly a priority. And in this case, it was a very priority. But until, like for us as a congregation, and as brothers handling this, until we have another witness, just on the basis of the one alone, we can't act judicially. So that's how we acted. So until that further information comes to mind, in that way we're having to support the victim in this case. So I don't know what else I could say for that.
But that would be very dependent, wouldn't it, upon your own assessment of the victim, and wouldn't that leave a very fraught situation? It's a dangerous situation. Well, you've got an unproved complaint. It leaves the victim or the complainant hanging in the air, doesn't it? Because you can't really address the complaint. So
that's true.
The complainant is left hanging in the air without any form of justice to her.
If it's, it depends what way you look at the justice for it, but from the congregation, we're just going to continue to give her that support and also have the confidence that other things will come to light. So we'll continue to very much look at that. And anything that comes to our attention, we will then follow through on. But in the meantime, you're actually would help the person, the victim, to really see, well, we are putting our trust totally that, yes, Jehovah is seeing it. He knows that the person is guilty, and it will certainly be made evident. And as it was in this case, we look at that from the first committee meeting, and then by a week later, that's verified that child abuse had taken place. So
verified by virtue of his confession?
At that appeals meeting, where he then said, yes, everything that BCG had said was true.
See, I don't want to labour the issue. I'm conscious of time, but it's a case, isn't it, that confession was, you were aware of that confession prior to the appeal meeting. He made that confession prior to the appeal meeting. He, in fact, made it at a meeting in July.
My recollection is that it was there at the appeals that confession was made.
Excuse me. But you do accept, don't you, that the process, your process is fraught with the danger of leaving victims feeling that they are not believed?
I disagree with that.
Excuse me, Your Honour. Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Coyne.
Thank you, Your Honour. For the record, Coyne, I represent Mr. DeRoy and other elders. Ms. David was just asking you some questions in relation to a transcript of Mr. Arlai's notes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I think it's Exhibit 29, if that could be brought up again, please. Stroke 8. Thank you. Specifically, about halfway down, you're asked in relation to the portion where it says, tell BCG of decision to disfellowship on grounds of loose conduct. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. If the witness could be given a copy of the unredacted version of that. He doesn't know. Have you got?
I don't think that's one, is it? It's not the same document. Oh, okay.
You have the unredacted version there. If you could go to, and the pages are at the top, ringtail 1495. And you should find that same sentence that you've been asked about.
Yep.
And do you agree that that, in fact, talks about BCH and not BCG?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Now, all I would like to do now, Mr. DeRoy, is just clarify your knowledge and involvement in this matter. Okay? So, in 1989, you were an elder of the Mariba congregation.
That's right.
You'd been so for quite a while.
Until presently.
You knew BCG at that time.
Yes.
In 1989, the elders received a complaint in relation to BCH in relation to him having an adulterous affair.
That's correct.
The elders investigated that matter,
Yes.
and after investigating that matter, formed a judicial committee to determine that matter.
That's correct.
And that was the judicial committee which was held on the 12th of July 1989.
Yes, I don't remember the date, but that'd be correct.
The judicial committee found that allegation to be proven,
Yes.
and the judicial committee determined to disfellow BCH.
That's correct.
If you could go to tab, or if we could bring up tab 3, please. You need to see the whole of that document.
That's right.
Is that document the finding of the judicial committee that we've just been discussing?
Yes.
Just take you to the, and you've signed that.
That's correct, yes.
Take you to the top of that document. It's got a stamp on it that says SD, 7 August 1989. All right?
Yes.
Do you know what the SD stands for?
Be the service desk.
Okay. What did you do with that document, having prepared it?
That this was actually sent to the service desk for them to be able to stamp that and was that.
Was it sent by you to the service desk, or was it sent to the appeal committee?
It originally would have went to the appeals committee, and then they would have sent it through to the. From what I can remember.
Okay. In relation to a disfellowship, having made that decision, when does it become effective?
You usually still allow the 7 days, and then we'll announce it to the congregation that the person has been disfellowshipped.
Actually, just more questions on the Judicial Committee. At that Judicial Committee, is it the case that BCG and her mother attended the meeting?
From my memory, I can't remember the mother.
Okay. Did BCG's fiancé attend that meeting?
I remember him being at the first meeting.
Okay. And during that meeting, BCG made allegations which are the subject of these proceedings at that meeting.
Yes.
And during that meeting, BCH at all times refused to admit those allegations.
That's correct.
Okay. So, after the committee meeting, did the elders continue to investigate those allegations?
I can say yes, but I have no, I can't be specific.
Okay. If we could bring up tab 8, please. Wrong one. Tab 5, I'm sorry. That's the record of the appeal committee, is that right?
That's right.
Which you attended?
Yes.
Now, you see at the top the date, SD 7 August 1989.
Yes.
That's the same date that the other committee one went to the service desk, correct?
Right.
So would your original document from the Judicial Committee have gone with this?
That would have been the case.
Okay. And in this one, the Appeal Committee, even though it was an appeal in relation to his disfellowshipping, BCH was questioned at length about BCG's allegations.
That's correct.
And as a consequence of that, ultimately, he admitted to carrying out those acts.
That's true.
And it was acknowledged in this document, if we could go up a bit further on, that those allegations were more serious.
That's very much so.
And those allegations were then added to the reason for disfellowshipping.
That's true.
Okay. After that meeting, did the elders make any arrangements for the care and welfare of BCG?
From my memory, we had a couple that took BCG in to their home for a long period of time, and then Kevin Bowditch, she then went to her home just before they got married, or at the marriage.
She lived with Mr. Bowditch.
Yes.
Mr. Bowditch being another elder of the Maruba congregation, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Shortly after disfellowshipping, BCH moved away from the community. Is that right?
That's correct.
And shortly thereafter, towards the end of 1989, BCG was married.
That's true, yes.
And was married in the congregation.
That's true.
At the Kingdom Hall.
That's the case.
And after her wedding, lived for a time.
It's the case, yes.
And after that, after you were informed of that, and this is tab 27, you don't need to look at it, you wrote to that new congregation suggesting that a number of restrictions be imposed upon him.
That's right.
Actually, on the 19th of December 1995, BCG gave you a letter detailing her concerns about BCH's reinstatement.
That's correct.
On that very same day, you sent that through to the service desk.
That's correct.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Stewart.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I just have one question, if I might. Mr. Derui, my name
You need
is...
to just turn that microphone, I think, so your voice is picking up.
Thank you. Mr. Derui, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Mr. Drury, my name is Miss McGlinchey and I appear for Monty Baker in these proceedings. Right. Mr. Drury, you'd be aware that Mr. Baker is a disfellowshipped person?
I'm not really aware of that.
You're not aware
No.
You're not aware at all that he is in a, I think you call it a disfellowship state?
I'm not aware of that.
Have you discussed that with your other Jehovah's witnesses in this proceedings?
No.
All right. As a disfellowshipped person, you would not be allowed to speak to him, is that right?
I would choose not to speak to him.
Or recognise him in any way?
I wouldn't even know what he looks like.
All right. But you would know from the documents that were provided through your counsel that he has provided a statement in these proceedings. Do you know that?
I saw the name, I think, but I'm not aware.
Did you read the statement?
No.
And was that because he is a disfellowshipped person?
Not at all, no.
I noticed that a number of Jehovah's Witnesses have not read the statements of the two victims of sexual abuse. Is that because they are critical of the church?
Not at all, no.
Was there any discussion prior to coming to these hearings about what materials you would read and what materials you wouldn't read?
Not at all. That's a total personal decision, what I would do.
And you decided not to read Mr. Baker's statement?
It never entered into my head to do so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
No questions, Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. DeRoy. Your evidence has finished. You're now excused. Thank you.
Your Honour, the next witness will be Mr. Monty Baker. He'll be giving evidence by video from Brisbane, and I'm advised that for purposes of establishing the connection and so on, it would be most convenient if we might take a 5-minute break.
Tell us when you're ready.
That's right, please.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mr. De Roy. I was just asking you some questions prior to the break about scriptures. I just want to, like I say, explore or suggest to you that would you agree that in the absence of having some comprehensive expert input into what scriptures you might give a person after they had been the victim of abuse, that it could have a serious negative impact upon a victim?
Saying the wrong things,
Yes.
could have an impact like that.
Yes, yes. So, would you agree then that it is really important for you as an elder to, if you are going to use the scriptures, that they be incorporated into some program that takes care of the person not only ecclesiastically but emotionally, physically, psychiatrically, in all ways? Do you agree with that?
I really don't know perhaps where you're coming from there. I look at the scriptures that we use for comforting ones when they go through tribulations and situations like this. The scriptures, Philippians talks about the comfort that we get from the scriptures. So then using the right scriptures after listening and how they're feeling, and perhaps trying to help them readjust to Jehovah's way of thinking from God's word, that they that know themselves and just reinforcing what they already know can actually help them to heal.
Yes. Well, firstly, you would agree that they would have to be the right scriptures and the right response to a particular individual, wouldn't they?
You've got to keep the individual in mind. Yes.
Pardon?
Yes, we've got to keep the individual in mind and use the right scriptures.
But what I'm suggesting to you is that time encourage her, did you, to go to a counsellor or some outside assistance, did you?
No. That I can recall.
And I just want to point to two. Do you recall in the investigative committee meetings that BCG was in fact counselled against talking about her, the abuse upon her?
I don't recall that.
Perhaps if the witness could please be shown Exhibit 29.9, the investigative report notes. So I think it's exhibit. Sorry, I'm going from the exhibit list. Yes, notes investigative committee. If you look, please, at page 11 of those notes of itself. Well, firstly, I'm suggesting two things. Firstly, that of itself, just the scriptures alone, would you agree, are just simply not enough to deal with how a victim may feel?
You could be very right there. I would agree. I'd agree with that.
So that it would be important to ensure that they were aware of the existence of counselling, aside from counselling and support from trained people.
It would be good for them to know that. Can I just say that would be then something that the individual would have to decide. I'm, as an elder, I'm trying to give comfort from the scriptures that will help them to be fortified in dealing with what they're going through, helping them recall things that they have learned in the past or examples that will actually help them. So cope with the stressful situation and the feelings that they have.
But for example, with BCG, you didn't at any... If you go down to the bottom of page 11, you see that on the 17th of June 89, there's a meeting with BCI and BCG, and BCI being BCG's mother. Do you accept that?
Right, yep. Yes, I can see that.
If you just go over to the next page, please. Do you agree that up the top there it says that counsel given on confiding matters of family to congregation members, and you used articles and scriptures were used within the meeting? And that counsel was also given to BCG also of the same matters using the above articles?
I think that's correct.
So do you agree that she was counselled about speaking about this issue?
On keeping it confidential, we would have encouraged them not to speak to others about that at that particular time.
And if you go, please, over to, perhaps it could be taken to